morning, everybody. We are looking at a rhetorical analysis essay formerly known as Question 2. And who knows, after the plague of 2020, perhaps it'll go back to being Question 2. But as far as I can tell, this is what we're looking at on our modified 45-minute AP exam. In terms of a procedural approach, right, if you had to sit down with this thing today and make it happen in 45 minutes, I would say devote 1 to 2 minutes tops in deconstructing that prompt. And if you remember, that means we go through there, right? The prompt being in the following letter, Abigail Adams, and that top portion, which gives you the directive for the essay, you underline anything that looks really important to you, okay? I would not underline really the background information. I would read it carefully, make sure I knew what was going on, right? But I would probably underline analyze the rhetorical strategies Adams uses to advise her son. I would probably also underline support your analysis with specific references to the text. Okay? And that's just like a beacon of light, a candle in the dark, right? As you write and as you go forward on your journey of trying to organize, discuss objective, writing strategy, techniques, as you're going through all that, you just keep kind of going up to that part that you underlined and saying, am I doing that? Am I staying on focus? And it might seem like overkill, but I really think, the time you invest in just kind of being hyper aware of that objective, right? You underline it. It's almost like a symbolic way of just telling yourself, I'm going to stick to this plan. I don't think it's time wasted to do that. But instead of going through procedure, I think it would be beneficial, especially since we have a little bit of time before the exam, to go back and look at concepts and look at some of the, the strategies and fundamentals that we looked at earlier in the year. And the best way I would do that if I were you is I would go revisit our Google Classroom page and I would look at notes posted in September. And the notes I would look at first would be titled Introductory Notes in the Rhetorical Triangle, Toulmin's Model, and Claim Writing. Okay? And that's a bunch of notes from class early in the year that we discussed at great length, but they're on Classroom and you can look over those. All right? So I would advise that. The first part of those notes really deals primarily with the rhetorical triangle. And if you remember from September, the biggest question and the biggest thing I wanted you to take away from our early classes was, what is the objective of the speaker? Right off the bat, you want to understand what is it that they're trying to accomplish here, right? And I talked about conceptually, one form or another, everything is salesmanship, right? Like if you watch a commercial, there's a rhetorical situation. There is a triangle there, right? There's a message, there's an audience, there is an objective, and there's ways that the orator or the rhetor is trying to get that objective accomplished. So most of what we're going to be, or what we've read this year and what we're going to continue to read, is not going to be salesmanship of a product per se, but it could be a belief, an ideology, a certain side of an argument, whether it's political, it could be spiritual, it could be emotional, right? But what are they, or who, right, the speaker, what are they trying to achieve, okay? And you want to maybe put that into language. I don't know if you're going to go through all these theatrical little steps in 45 minutes, but we're not writing this essay in 45 minutes. We're going to take a week. We're going to take over a week, right? This is due next Friday. So go through it step by step. Put into language what you could, squeeze out of that rhetorical triangle, right? The second thing to consider now would be what tools is the author using to try to achieve that objective. And I would put those into two broad categories, right? The first would be language, and that's stuff we're familiar with, right? Diction, connotation, denotation, comparison, contrasting, selection of certain details. Those smaller things make up larger elements like tone, right? So if you can find a pattern of diction that has certain connotations emotionally, or that have certain types of feelings that are attached to them, they're going to comprise a certain tone. and there can be shifts in tone. It can go from one tone to another. I would also invite you to revisit our notes on Google Classroom, referring to adjectives for describing tone and style, just to kind of elevate your word game a little bit, right? Maybe we got a little rusty. You don't want to write words like good or bad or nice or happy. You want to try to elevate to, dare I say, polysyllabic words to describe these more sophisticated emotions that might be being conveyed into this letter. So, well, again, I'm talking about language. That could be imagery, it could be metaphor, it could be analogy, it could be allusion, right? Where they refer to other things outside the text. We'll do a review where we go over those, but language is language, okay? Hey, is that a metaphor going on? Okay, that's interesting. Maybe I'll circle that. Hey, is there a list of things happening here? The other broad category instead of language would be organization, right? Where do these things go, right? Where do they put these things? And why, for example, is what I found in the first paragraph, why does that come first? Why is whatever element in the second paragraph, why is that second? Is there a greater organization or logic to the way they set things up? So again, I'm going to play ping pong. I'm going to go back to language, right? Diction, imagery, perhaps symbolism. When you look at the language now, you want to ask yourself, what is that language being used for? Is that language working to create, for example, pathos, some kind of emotional appeal? And what is that emotion? Is the language, functioning or facilitating some type of authority or ethos, right? Are they referring to certain allusions or certain events to try to convey authority or expertise, credibility, right? Remember, ethos is all about just believing in the writer or the speaker, the voice having authority based on their moral superiority or just their expertise. So is that happening? Are we seeing ethos or pathos being conveyed in certain areas in that language? If so, mark that down, right? But now let's ping pong back to the other one, right? Organization, where things are. Well, what type of rhetorical appeal are we going to glean from organization? And hopefully you guessed it, right? That would be logic or logos, because the way you set up an argument, and you might read this and say, there's no argument. Well, there is, right? There's always some type of persuasive design where they might not come right out and debate something openly, but make no mistake, there's an argument. There's a persuasive design within embedded here. So look at where things are and ask, is there a logic to the overall structure? And that would be logos, right? They organize certain things. First, they present one thing because that makes it possible for the next thing to occur. Are you going to engage in these types of really surgical and granular analyses in a 45-minute essay? Probably not. And what I don't want you to do is engage in some type of rhetorical device treasure hunt. I don't want you kind of in 45 minutes going through here with a microscope and just trying to find every little thing. I mean, you can't write about everything anyway. You wouldn't want to. Again, always think of the objective. And from that objective, you want to try to come up with an overall rhetorical strategy, right? How do the choices that this person makes, right? Their diction, their connotations, their descriptions, their comparisons, their syntax, all these choices, how do they build on one another, right? How do they build on a larger strategy? I would pick maybe three distinct important things, right? Three things that are noticeable and powerful and that matter, right? Three parts of the language, and I would write about them. That would be kind of how I do that. And that's about it. People, this was really just a general overview of what you should pretty much be doing here. Again, revisit your notes as they refer to the rhetorical triangle, Toulmin's model, and claim writing. I will pipe in a few days with another more detailed kind of analysis where I walk you through this a little bit, kind of like what we would do in class. I don't want to give you a bunch of stuff to write about per se, but I might take you through a few paragraphs, talk about maybe some of the things I've noticed. And again, check our schedule. All right. I'm going to be doing Google Meets with this class on Wednesday. All right. Starting obviously next week. And I'm going to have office hours pretty much all day. I mean, around 9 to 2 p.m. What that really just means is that if you want to talk, if you need help, if you just want more of a, not just a quick email, but you'd like to touch base, discuss something, or just, have more time to just kind of, I don't know, communicate, um, just send me an email and I'll send you an invite to Google Meet and we'll discuss this or whatever else is going on. I hope everyone's well. Again, I'll be tuning back to you with another one of these hopefully helpful instructional kind of supplements to the fact that I can't really be with you and teach. Um, and again, we'll get through this essay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.